Greetings and welcome to episode 4 of XEP's Creator Talk, exclusive to Tier 2 and 3 patrons of the Xbox Expansion Pass and the patrons of my guests, if they are so choosing. Today I'm joined by the man with the million, Mr. Randall Thor 19, on loan from the Xbox 2 podcast, which he hosts alongside his sidekick, Mr. Jez Corden. Rand, we're going to start with our topic being Sega's acquisition of Rovio today, but first, how are you, dude?
Dude, I am doing really well. It's been a while since me and you have podcasted together. Digging the new format. I'm glad that you expanded to Patreon, and people seem to be digging it, doing extra content like the Creator Talk here.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to expect, but I'm sure we'll have an excellent conversation.
Oh man, I'm stoked. We had big news as far as acquisitions go, and I know for me, I'm tired of talking about acquisitions, man. This whole ABK thing has lasted what feels like 16 years at this
You're not
point.
excited for acquisition season?
Oh, I'm worn out. It was fun at first.
It
was fun
because Jim Ryan was opening his mouth, Phil Spencer was responding, PlayStation was saying some stuff, Xbox was saying some stuff, and then it kind of fell into a same old rut. Yeah. But it might be ending soon, though, so that's at least a positive.
Fingers crossed. At the time of this recording, South Africa has now approved the deal. And they're like the 5th or 6th country, so I'm sure we're close. It really does feel like we're inching to that ABK completion. Like we're almost there, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the CMA is supposed to decide next week. The final date's the 26th, and then the European Commission is May 22nd. I know New Zealand still got to decide. And then who knows what's going to happen with the FTC? Are they going to roll over? Is Microsoft going to call their bluff and close without them? Will they come to a deal? Like, I don't know what's going to happen there.
I don't know, man. But I will say, at the very least, I'm going to be looking forward to a new talking point with it. That's for me. Like, I'm ready to talk about new things because I feel like I'm trying to get blood out of a stone. Are they going to pass it? Or are they not? You know what I mean? Like every other week as a content creator, it's just like, dude, all right, come on.
Yeah, enough of this.
Yeah, big time. Big time. But our acquisition that we are starting our conversation with today has to do with Sega, not purchased by Xbox, as the internet tried to make me believe a few weeks ago. In this case, Sega itself has acquired Rovio Entertainment for $776 million. Rovio, famous for the Angry Birds, Sega, of course. A lot of good IP in Sega. I think a lot of people go with just Sonic, but you think about all the Atlas stuff, they've got some good stuff in there. I don't know. This was cool news to me. Who knew that? I think you said to me before we recorded, who knew Angry Birds was worth so much, right?
Yeah, $770 million for just Angry Birds. I think most of the games that Rovio's put out since then have been clones of Angry Birds and haven't done as well as Angry Birds.
Right.
So it's an interesting acquisition. We've seen a lot of big acquisitions in the space targeting mobile, right? You got this one. You have Take-Two buying Zynga. And you have, I mean, Microsoft has been very upfront saying the ABK deal was about King. I know everybody gets fixated on Call of Duty, but they really need a mobile presence. So you see a lot of the big players making the push into mobile. So but then there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there, Ghosts, right? A lot of them, because now it's like, does this make Sega look even a tastier acquisition for Microsoft in the future? Because somehow it's always got to come back. It's always got to come back to Xbox, right?
I think it comes back to that in this space. But do you think there are like business people that are not gaming familiar? Do you think they look at this stuff ever like that, or is it just numbers and ledgers for them?
I think for some people it's numbers and ledgers. I think others it is the gaming thing, but I mean, I guess it really depends on what your focus is. For some, it's just like, all right, the left column and the right column, what's our profit loss? What are they going to bring to the company? It's not even really about the game itself. It's just about strictly numbers and increasing value for stockholders and stuff like that, right?
I think when I look at like the Rovio deal, it's exactly what you said. It's about mobile, right? Like Angry Birds, good IP, all things considered. I mean, it had a decent movie. This was pre Mario movie, pre Sonic the Hedgehog movie, when video game IP you weren't really sure, but like that's a solid IP. They had Star Wars spin-offs and such, but um, it really feels like to me they're just trying to make inroads into getting on as many devices as possible. We've seen Sega; they make multiple Sonic games are on mobile. Uh, we know that Nintendo's explored the mobile space. Of course, Microsoft exploring the mobile space. We just had Mighty Doom come out on mobile, which, real talk, I like the Mighty Doom
Mm.
game, but I did see, like, apparently it has a pretty sharp difficulty spike, but I'm enjoying it for the casual approach that I'm playing in it. Um, I don't mind some of these IP going into the mobile space. I don't. It doesn't bother me. Do you mobile at all, or do you ever
Mm.
get like fixated on and frustrated with it?
No, no, I don't really play games on my phone. I'm not really even a mobile gamer in general. Like I have my
Mhm.
Switch, and every time my Switch is hooked up, it's hooked up to my TV. I never undock it. So I'm just not that type of person that really is looking to play mobile games.
Mhm.
So like when the topic comes up, or when like Phil talks about mobile or whatever, my eyes sort of glaze over
Mhm.
because it doesn't interest me. And like you usually want to talk about things that are interesting to you and potentially
Right.
people listening.
Mhm.
And I think most of our audience isn't really interested in Candy Crush or Angry Birds, really.
Right.
Just like a lot of people aren't really interested in VR.
Mhm.
I've seen the numbers. Most people, you can watch like how many people are watching live. You talk about VR, and those numbers start to drop. It's
Mhm.
not exciting for a lot of core gamers. I understand why they do it, because it's almost like basically like prints money for them, right?
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
makes a lot of money. So I have no problems like, hey, you got Diablo, you want to make a Diablo free to play mobile game? Great.
Mhm.
As long as you're doing Diablo 4, you know?
Right.
That's the thing. You still, I think they said this about Gears, remember?
Gears
2019 or
Pop.
2018, when it was like, we got Gears Pop, we got Gears Tactics, and we got Gears 5 at the time. So
Mhm.
it's one of those things where it's like you got to make sure that you're doing the property for the hardcore fans on PC
Mhm.
and console, if you're going to bring over to mobile. But not really. It doesn't. I kind of just, it doesn't really enter into my thought process. Even when I think about ABK, it's Call of Duty,
Mhm.
it's all the Blizzard stuff, and I know King's important, but I know it's also something I'll never play COD Mobile, and I'll never play Candy Crush.
I totally get it. And it's funny because I don't mind mobile gaming. I enjoy it when I'm sitting on the couch, my wife and I are watching TV, relaxing. But I don't like seek it out, right? Like I don't seek out the mobile space. But if it doesn't come at the expense of the proper experience, I'm okay with it. I liked Gears Pop, but I also got Tactics and then thus Gears 5. I love Titanfall as a franchise. It's just one of my favorites. There was a really fun Titanfall mobile game that I played called Titanfall Assault that I enjoyed. Uh, didn't really take off, right? So, and to be successful in the mobile space is very particular. I'm enjoying Mighty Doom, but none of the Titanfalls, the Gears pops, or anything comes at the expense of the game's proper. And so I like it as a supplementary experience. So that tends to be how I approach kind of mobile space. And it's funny you say that about VR because I really did when VR first came out for PSVR 2, I should say my timeline was not lit up at all. Like
Mm.
nobody was talking about it. And I asked Twitter, I was like, hey, is this just me? Is this just curation, algorithm change? Like, why is anyone talking about this? And people kept saying, yeah, no, I love it. I've got it. I love it. And then, of course, we have news that it didn't do well. And we talked with Lord Cog on the last Creator Talk about it. It's funny how much we don't know about our gaming space, despite being pretty prevalent in it. You know?
Yeah, no. Are you interested in VR that much? Because
I would if I could afford it, but, like,
okay,
to me, I'm a budget gamer, like, I mean, we talked off air, like, I'm a teacher, man, so, like, buying this PC was an event for me, right? Even though Ains hooked me up, still an event for me, still took a chunk of a check that I saved and whatnot, it took Patreon money, took so the idea of VR where it's minimum $500 plus game plus console, that's a big step in, and I don't have that, and so I'm already locked out of that ecosystem. even if I wanted to play it now, would I sell some plasma to get a Halo experience? I mean, I sold plasma to get my 360 back in the day. Would I
Did
do
you?
Yeah, man, that's how I got my
Wow.
360. I wanted to
Okay.
play Gears, and I was in college, like, I wanna play Gears. Um, would I do that to pull on the Halo visor and see the HUD pop up? Man, I might, but it that's such a particular niche thing, Like, are you a VR person?
You know, no. I mean, I did get the PSVR, the first one,
Mhm.
and I did enjoy what I played. I was like, okay, this is really cool. However, there was couple titles where I wasn't really, I wouldn't feel very good afterwards. Like I kind of would
Mm,
get sick. In fact, there was like one where it was like a roller coaster ride. I
mhm.
like had to go to the bathroom and kind of like throw up a little bit. Like that's
Yeah.
how much it affected me. And I was like, it's a cool experience playing it, but it's like all the wires and how heavy it was. It
Mhm.
was like this won't take off until VR is basically a pair of glasses you put on that are wireless,
Right.
right? And then you look at PSVR 2 and part of me is like, yeah, okay, sure, that looks really cool, but it's like a really high price point and I'm kind of like eh, is this really going to be supported for long? Like, you know what would really make me want to get PSVR 2? If
What?
Valve announced Half-Life Alyx for it. Because I
I've
haven't played Half-Life Alyx. I
Yeah.
am Half-Life's one of my favorite franchises ever. I remember the conversations back in the day between what was better, Halo or Half-Life, Half-Life or Halo, right?
Wow.
And I really want to play Half-Life Alyx, but my PC is not good enough, and I don't really
Mhm.
care for VR. But I have a PS5. I would very much consider dropping the money down to buy it to get play Half-Life Alyx. But even then, it's kind of like like we saw the reports that they may have cut shipments for the future because it didn't sell well, and it's
Mhm.
like, is this basically going to be a thing much like Sony's accessories that aren't really well supported in the future? And with VR in general, like we see all the losses that Meta's incurring trying to chase after that. It's kind of like maybe the world isn't ready for VR yet. We aren't there, you know?
Until it's glasses. Until it's glasses, we're just not there. Um, like I really think that's what it is, and it'll be niche until it's the glasses, and then it will be everywhere. At least that's my prediction.
But you want Halo on VR though.
I
You
I
that would be your holy grail moment, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the idea of like putting it on, like the visor comes up, or uh, prepare for Titanfall.
Oh,
Drop
okay.
in, and then suddenly like my each hand is an arm of the mech, and I'm like, like that would be cool. Then I think maybe like if I could be a Titan in VR,
Mhm.
I think that might get me in. But those are probably the only two experiences. I'm lying. I'm lying. Those are two experiences I want most. But would I do it if I could change, gears or I know there's some Star Wars experiences, but it would need to be like a Half-Life Alex level of it, not like a gimmicky one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Vader Immortal looks dope, but it's not enough to get me to buy a unit, right? So, and I would need to know, I would need confidence in the brand, like
Right.
to know that they're not going to pull a PS Vita on it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I would be really happy if they made a Titanfall VR game because that means EA is actually making a Titanfall game because it just certainly seems like they're not going to.
I will never forgive them for what they did. They put it out between Battlefield and COD, one of which they owned, and they were like, "How could this have happened? We don't think they'll."
Yes.
What are you talking about? Like, and Titanfall 2 is so good, and my heart breaks whenever I see it on sale for like $6. It and Sleeping Dogs, which I know is Square Enix, but those two games being on sale, those are two games that everybody should play. Titanfall 2 and Sleeping Dogs. Uh, the- they're so good. They're so
They are.
good.
They're incredibly good, and it probably didn't help. Titanfall's chances of coming back, considering how successful Apex Legends ended up being. Where it's like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, well, we don't need to bring back Titanfall if this is just going to be our game that we work on forever. And then the Jedi series that they're doing seems to be incredibly successful as well.
Mhm.
So it's like you have two successful things. You might as well work on those. But it's like, yeah, I feel because after Titanfall 2, where it's like, all right, Titanfall 1, incredible multiplayer, right?
So good.
genre defining. Then you
So
get Titanfall 2, and it's like one of the best FPS campaigns in a long time,
right?
right? It was
Oh, that
incredible.
time travel level. That time travel was
Oh.
so good.
And then the multiplayer was really good. It wasn't as good as 1.
Mhm.
And it was like, okay, you thought it was going to get a bigger exposure because it was on PC, it was on PlayStation for the first time, and sandwiched between Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare,
Mhm.
and it didn't take off. Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing because I know there are people that really want it to come back so much, and they blame Apex Legends, for it.
It Apex is or let me rephrase. Apex was such a good experience for the first that first year. I loved it, and then I faded off.
Hmm.
And I'm sure it's evolved since, but I haven't gone back. I think what I went from, I think it was probably Apex was probably first, and to uh, Warzone, which I
Okay.
really enjoyed, to then Fortnite no build mode. And when no build mode went into Fortnite, that's when I was like, Fortnite's not bad, because I did not enjoy fighting 12-year-olds wearing a bunny suit that were turning into a house when I shot them. But for some reason, when they're Marvel characters and or I'm playing the Resident Evil characters and Kratos and Master Chief, and there's no buildings going up, I enjoy it more, for sure. But Apex got me into battle royales in a way that I wasn't expecting to. I thought I was just going to be old hat and not go into it, but I actually like them now.
I put 900 hours into PUBG. Me and my
Dude.
group could not stop. We would get on every night at 8 p.m. and we played every single night to 2 a.m. And then we talk about it before we get on. It was such an incredible. It was like playing Halo 2 for the first time again. That feeling of
Yeah.
excitement, exploration, like what's going to happen. Everybody's so excited to get on and play to get those,
Yeah.
the wins. And that lasted for X amount of time. And then we
Mhm.
kind of got bored of it. Apex Legend comes around. We played that for 150 hours. And then everybody was kind of like, eh. And then Warzone came. We played
Mhm.
that for 250 or whatever.
Mhm.
But you want to know one of the biggest things about my biggest pet peeves since the Xbox One in this generation?
Hit me.
Um, that everything's a live service game. And not for the way you think.
Okay.
I mean in the sense that because the games are live service, there's
Mhm.
no reboot, there's no like reset, and there's no sequel. And what I mean by that is, like I mentioned, we played PUBG for 900 hours. We'll never go back to it. We played Apex Legends for 150. We'll never go back to it. We
Mhm.
played Warzone for 200. Never go back to it. We played Rainbow Six Siege for 300. We'll never go back to it. Right?
Right.
Once we fall off a game, we never go and get back on that game. Whereas in generations past, there would be a Rainbow Six Siege 2. There would
Mhm.
be an Apex Legends 2. There would be, I know they did Warzone 2.0, so not exactly the best game to use for my argument, but essentially, because we don't get any sequels to these games with the reset point and all this new stuff that you would normally get and would bring us back into the game, now we find ourselves with less games, less multiplayer games to play because nobody wants to go back and play those. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I totally know what you
So
mean.
my group basically doesn't really have anything to play because we've played ourselves out of all this stuff, and that's one of my pet peeves. Because I'm sure at some point they would have did a Rainbow Six Siege 2, and we would have got back into it. We would
Mhm.
have got back into a new Titanfall or whatever. But I understand why they don't do it. It's disappointing for me because kind of splintered my friend group, and we don't really get to play that much anymore. Nobody wants to play Halo. Nobody wants to play Warzone 2.0.
Mhm.
So you're like looking for crumbs when in like 360 gen, even early Xbox One gen, there would always be something new of a sequel, and you would get on and play that, and that just doesn't happen anymore.
You're 100% right, and the moment when you put it like that, I'm right on board with you, because like what's Sea of Thieves 2 gonna be, right?
Hmm.
Like, are Miles Dompierre and I never gonna get it? Like, my buddy Captain Logan, like, he covers Sea of Thieves, and I've got I think 900 plus hours in Sea of
Damn.
Thieves. I love it. I love it. And his friends are like 2,000 hours. But what's the next version? Like, what's the point of a next version if you keep evolving? And then you look at Overwatch 2, and it's like, well, do should we have a sequel at all? What's the point of that?
Well,
So,
interesting with Overwatch 2 was my friends had all played Overwatch 1 for a long time and then they stopped. And Overwatch 2 actually got them all to come back and start playing Overwatch again. Of course, eventually they stopped playing that, but it actually did get people to come back because it was the 2 in the name. It was the sequel. And I don't know if you saw, speaking of Sea of Thieves, the co-founder that left Media Molecule,
mhm.
I was hearing some things on social media that he might be going to Rare to work on Sea of Thieves or something.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I did not see that was the case. I know that he left Media Molecule, but the idea that he might end up at Rare. Now, do you think he'd be at Sea of Thieves or
Well, he
Everwild?
did make a tweet basically saying that, he'd be he's I forget what the tweet was, but it was basically like, I'm going to be a pirate, and something like that, implying that wherever he was going was working on a pirate game. And I think
Mm,
I don't know if this isn't confirmed for anybody listening. I just saw some speculation online that, oh, he might be actually going to Rare, and we know Rare's working on Everwild. I don't know what's really going on with Sea of Thieves, but uh, so yeah, I thought, since we're talking about it, like, I think that's, interesting if he did go to Rare. Maybe they need someone else to run the ship, so to speak. I don't know,
mhm.
because everybody else is kind of moving on to their new project.
Definitely feels like a lot of bigger games, at least when we're recording this, are losing people.
Mm,
New things are happening. I wonder if that's just timing, coincidence, or what. But like as Joseph Staten, he's going to Netflix now. Like that's the big news here. And
what an
uh,
interesting thing, isn't it?
it is interesting. It's like, all right, is this
What's the
like
play there?
what is the play? Because on the one hand, m- millions of dollars of funding, new IP, you get to be in charge. If it doesn't work out, you got a safety net because it was Netflix, not PlayStation, not Xbox. Google Stadia did this same thing with Jade Raymond and a few others. But like, is this a downgrade? Is it an upgrade? It's Joseph Staten, right? This guy's a legend. So what's the move here? But it is interesting, and like I wish them all the best. I want to know what Netflix is gonna try to do to survive because they've been bleeding subscribers. Their service is too expensive. They're struggling to compete with HBO Max, Disney Plus, or with Max. I don't know if HBO Max anymore. Whatever, they changed their name. But like what is the play with that? But he's not the only one. Frank O'Connor, he's
Yeah.
departed, been gone for a little bit, I think. And I think what we're seeing is kind of that mid-gen, like, all right, something this worked, we're sticking with it. This didn't, we're moving, we're changing things.
Yeah, I think Halo was shuffling the decks because of what happened with Infinite. But the
Hmm.
Netflix thing is super interesting to me because here you have media giant, number one in streaming, saying we're getting into gaming. And people are like, yeah, yeah, right.
Hmm.
But they're constantly repeat, no, we're serious about this. And most of their offerings have been mobile games, which you access through their subscription. You download them on iOS or Android, and you have to log into your Netflix account to play it, right?
Hmm.
So it's like, but a AAA game by Joe Staten, multi-platform, kind of implies, okay, well, that's PC and console.
Hmm.
So is Netflix about to become a games publisher on PlayStation and Xbox? We're, are you going to download this game for free on your Xbox, but have to log into your Netflix account to play? Because how does it work with their whole subservice stuff? Is this actually going to come out? Right? Like, because I saw Jason Schreier say not that long ago, hey, if you're making a brand new IP AAA game right now, you're looking at 5-6 years minimum.
Hmm.
You're targeting next generation. You're targeting PS6, whatever Xbox is next, because that's just
Right.
how long game development is now. And you're right. You look at Stadia, and we all thought, well, I don't think we all thought they were going to do big things, but Stadia was building up their studios, and then they basically cratered the whole thing before it got started. Is
Yep.
Netflix's insistence on being big in games actually going to last until this game actually comes out? 5 years from now. It's something to think about. Like, what type of game would it be? Would it be mobile only? Is it going to be on other platforms? Will it be free to play? Is it going to be multiplayer, single player, uh, published everywhere? What's the budget? Like, there's a
Hmm.
lot here because this would signify a huge new player in the space, right?
It would, and I would welcome that new player. By the way, continued disruption and putting people on their toes. We get our best Xbox, our best PlayStation, our best Nintendo when they are fighting for our dollar. So I would welcome kind of a new major player, but you'd need more than Joseph Staten because I think Xbox fans know him. I don't think a lot of people know him, but
That is true. Yeah.
he's the guy though that you can talk to investors and be like, and we've got the creative director that worked on Halo, worked on Destiny. Like we've got the guy who wrote the story of Halo, who penned much of the original Destiny story. That name has panache, which then lets you bring in more investors, more people, and but we should all be running for the hills if we see that Phil Harrison goes there.
Oh
That's what we
man,
should
if
be
Phil
worried
Harrison goes there, it's over.
about.
If that he can't be working in gaming anymore, right?
Wouldn't you have said that last time?
I mean, I don't
It
know.
sounds
Like
unbelievable.
any day, I'm starting to fear like waking up and being like, Phil Harrison rejoins Xbox. I just delete my YouTube channel right then and there.
That's when you're done. Yeah, that's when
Like
we're all
really,
done. We are all done.
Phil Harrison's back, Agent 47.
If Phil Harrison returns to Xbox, that's when I'm going to start begging for more 30 FPS problems to discuss. Like, make them all 30. I need different content. I can't talk about Phil Harrison. I can't do it. I can't make
So
that
how
kind
do
of money.
you being a huge Halo fan? How do you feel about Joe and Frank O'Connor leaving?
I love Halo. I'm typing on this, 117 Razer keyboard. I got my whole room is adorned with Halo books, comics, not the show. Uh, I am a little heartbroken on some level because this is a true story. I met Joseph Staten at E3 2019, which is the only E3 I've ever gotten to go to. And I didn't know who he was, except that he worked on Crackdown 3. This is a true
Mm,
story.
okay.
I knew the name Joe Staten, but I never connected, never saw the face, right? Just the nature of video games and coverage. And I wasn't a content creator for Xbox for very long at the time. And uh, I just knew that he was in those Crackdown 3 videos trying to talk about like the state of the game. And I was like, oh, cool. So when I saw him, he was with the creative director of Flight Sim, uh, very successful as well. They were the guys they brought in to try and get Crackdown over the finish line, right? Joe Staten and this other gentleman. And so I met them and I was like, are you guys the Crackdown 3 team? And their faces dropped. They looked so upset that I was asking this. And I was like, no, I really love Crackdown 3. I had a lot of fun chasing orbs. Thank you so much for letting me go back to this world. And like Crackdown 3, it did disappoint. I know it's not the game people wanted it to be, but I still got to play Crackdown and I like Crackdown. So I was just cheering them on, and they were Joseph Staten specifically was like, dude, you have no idea how much this means. Nobody has said stuff like this. This means the world. Took a great picture with me. Come to find out, he's the guy that wrote this franchise that I love. He's written books that I've read. He's had his hands on all these franchises that I adore. And I'm just like, man, what a moment that I didn't have, but I still got to celebrate him for something else. And so when I see him leaving, part of me hurts a little bit. The other part hurts because Infinite is so much fun, and yet they didn't execute on that vision that I really was on board with. New campaigns every 2-3 years in this platform. I loved that idea. So that's where it hurts, but also like it feels right. Like Halo does need new minds, new voices, new people. So I'm bummed, but also like maybe this is what's best. Maybe new blood is needed. Reinvention has worked for a lot of franchises. I think of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Reinventions really helped Doom. Maybe we'll get a reinvention of sorts that helps Halo and
Yeah.
with new people there. And I want him to land on his feet. That's a long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah, no. How would you feel about a Halo reboot? What if like they were just like, all right, we got new eyes on it. You know what? The next Halo campaign, we're starting over from scratch. It's just the timelines reset, starting from the very beginning again. Would you be cool with that if they did something like that?
I I would be cool with it. Yes, keep the writers of the show away. Um, but here's the thing, and I get a lot of flack because I enjoy the Snyderverse for DC. What I don't like is when a universe is left unfinished, right?
Right.
A
Okay.
story is left untold. So if you're going to reboot Halo, rock on, but please give us a comic book, a movie, a script, some way to close out and say goodbye to the story that was. I don't want to cut off at Halo Infinite and I don't know who the Endless are. I don't know what's happening with the weapon. I don't know how humanity recovers. Tell me, and then make the new game. So like I always wanted to know how Snyder's vision of DC finished when Marvel inevitably reboots at some point, um, however many years from now. I want to know how that world ends so I can see the new one begin. So that would be how I would be okay with it. I just want to know how a story ends. I don't want to leave something untold. What about you?
No, I mean that's a very good explanation. Yeah, because you feel like you invested all this time and stuff into anything, and you want to get closure, right? Beginning,
Exactly.
middle, and end. And for a lot of things, you get the beginning and you get the middle, but you never get to the end. And if
Right.
they, everything's reboots, and it's like, well, then you'd be like, oh man. It's like,
Right.
and then you're kind of like, well, do I even want to invest myself in this new thing? Because if they didn't finish the last one, no, I
Exactly.
get it. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Snyderverse,
Mm-hmm.
um, but also I would have liked to have seen it continue.
Yeah.
Uh, just to kind of okay, well, maybe it get better,
Tell me how
but
it ends.
also like I'm looking at it now, I'm like, I'm not necessarily behind James Gunn's new vision of it either.
Right.
And I was always a DC guy more than a Marvel guy. So
Mm-hmm.
even like I like Marvel too, but I was more DC. So
Mm-hmm.
looking at it now, I'm like, man, DC is like screwing the pooch. It's like,
Yep.
come on, look what Marvel's doing over there. Like I've always been Batman, Superman. Those
Yeah.
were my characters, and it's like to see how Superman's been mistreated this whole time, and Henry Cavill's been kind of uh, shafted and all that
Shafted.
stuff, and Ben Affleck with Batman. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, come on, come on, Hollywood. What are you doing?
It frustrates me, man, because I like the stories. You and I both have a love for reading. We both have a love for stories, I think, and I just want more stories with characters I love, and I want them to be treated with respect. It was a pleasure. I've not finished it yet, but it's been a pleasure to watch the Last of Us.
Mm,
Great show,
amazing show, amazing show.
and I want that for Halo. I want that for Gears. I want that for the franchises that I love. And I was
Does it
so
make you
happy.
feel a certain way when you see Last of Us incredibly successful, expanding to the mainstream, probably going to win awards? You see Super Mario Brothers movie, 700 million already, even though the critics hate it, people love it,
Hmm.
right? Two huge, for each huge Nintendo franchise, huge PlayStation franchise, and then the Mac Daddy of them all for Xbox, Master Chief and Halo. And just kind of like, even though they said it did well for Paramount Plus, it didn't really seem to excite fans. Did you look at that and be like, man, look at they did it. Look what they're
Hmm.
doing. And like, come on, why couldn't we get this? Do you ever think
Yeah,
about that? Yeah.
every time, every time. Every time. Yeah, man, there were so many things they could have done and didn't with that Halo show. There's so many times where we've seen great examples of video game shows, movies done right, uh, where they were fun, where they were enjoyable. And Halo has just been wasted with a bad vision, bad transmedia approach. And it sucks because I mean, when you love something so much, you want it to succeed. But I never want it to succeed at the detriment of something else. So watching Last of Us get its W, watching the Mario movie, watching the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise recover, those are all wins for me as a gamer. But it absolutely do I compare the frustrations and failures that Microsoft has shown with its transmedia approach to Halo. And I'm like, yo, yeah, you need to do better. It needs to
Mm,
be better. Simple as that.
yeah, I didn't even watch Halo. Maybe I'll watch the second season. Maybe it improves, and I hear be like, oh, now it's worth watching. But I was like, man, how do you? Ah,
Yeah.
well,
It was rough. It was rough. Well, look, Rand, I can hear my wife entering the door, which means it's time for me to depart and begin in evening festivities. But, dude, I want to thank you so much for joining me for Creator Talk. This has been a blast, dude.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. Short and sweet. Not a 4 hour long show. Everybody's butts hurt by the time it's all over and done with, and
Yeah.
just get in, say what you got to say about these little topics, and move on. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. By the way, I really appreciate it.
Such a good time. I'm grateful that you said yes. Absolutely, we need to work together again and whatnot. But yeah, So tell people before we go, tell people where they can find you on the old socials. Tell them about Xbox 2 and Patreon there.
Yeah. So if you guys want to check out what I do with, we got a podcast, my YouTube channel, youtube.com/RandallThor19. Me and Jez Corden do a podcast every Friday, most of the time every Friday. Patreon.com/XB2 if you want to check that out as well. Be much appreciated. But thank you for all of you that listened, and Luke for inviting me on. I loved it. It was great.
It was a pleasure. Patrons, thank you so much for supporting XEP. I'm sure you're checking out Rand stuff, but if you haven't, give it a listen, give it a look, give it a follow, like, subscribe, all that stuff. It means the world as creators when you guys support us. So that's it for us. Thanks, guys.